just something quick, something that really is not going to just drag yourself through the city and to bed. We're not going into bed. This is the most important thing. Good morning and welcome to another video. My name is Nana. I'm a luxury travel advisor, and today we're going to talk about how to beat jet lag once you're flying from the US to Europe or wherever else in the world. There's just a few things that over the years I've learned to do because it's made my experience once I get to Europe or wherever I'm traveling to, but mostly Europe, much better. So I'm going to break down what I recommend you do from what time to take your flight to what to do when you arrive, so you can maximize the time and kind of quickly switch your switch and be able to adapt to wherever you are time zone much easier and much better, and just not feel that you're wasting time. So these are my recommendations. We're gonna sit down and we're gonna talk about them. Let's start with what time should I take my flight? This really is kind of a hit or miss because sometimes later flights might be cheaper, but earlier flights might be cheaper. So it really does depend on what you can pay for your flight. I prefer, if there's no difference in price, to take a later flight, because if you take a 5 p.m. flight, what I've noticed is that you kind of waste 3 to 4 hours that you're well, I'm not gonna fall asleep at literally 6 p.m. or I'm not gonna fall asleep at 7 or 8. At most I could do is 9. So there's 4 hours that you have your dinner, you can watch a movie and things like that, but I just feel it's a little bit of time wasted. There's, for example, in Puerto Rico, currently it is changing, but there is a one-way flight every night from Puerto Rico to Madrid at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. they start boarding and things like that. You really get out on the air at 9 p.m. and they have an express dinner, really quick dinner, and then by 10 p.m. I take my sleeping aid, which is another recommendation, and I'm knocked out until they turn out the lights that we're arriving, and it's 1 hour before we have to arrive. So I go ahead and I refresh myself, I go to the bathroom, I just clean up myself a little bit, have whatever breakfast they're giving me, and I feel better because it's I took a nap. It was a 6-hour nap potentially, but it was a solid nap. Not the best sleep, but it was some sort of sleep. So my first recommendation is, if possible, if you find the flight is cheaper, take a flight anytime after 8 p.m. If it's 8 p.m., that's stretching it the most. But I would take 10 p.m. I would skip the service. I would get all your utensils to literally knock out: eye mask, headphones, noise canceling, pillow, blanket, and just sleeping aid, and just knock out. Okay, so that is my first, and then obviously a little recommendation over there about bringing all your things to make sure that you can get some sleep, especially the sleeping aid. It's going to be the most important thing. So we're in the flight and you have all of your essentials, and you make sure to take that sleeping medication, but make sure that you eat light. Do not fill yourself. Even though airplane food is really not that heavy, I would recommend that if you're in the airport, eat something at the airport, walk it off, get on the plane, and don't have the meal service. But if you're having the meal service, make sure that you don't overstuff yourself, because it's going to be harder to fall asleep if you're overstuffed. Alcohol really depends on you and depends on the person. Personally, I wouldn't do it just because of the dehydration and the potential to have more clots, because I don't want to deal with that. Okay, so it's 1 hour before we're landing. You were able to get around 6, kind of interrupted, it's not gonna be the best sleep. That's what we know. It's not gonna be the most pristine sleep, but you got something in. Okay? Get yourself a little bit ready, put some deodorant on, brush your teeth, clean your face, use a hydrating mist, and just get yourself ready to land. And usually these flights, even if they leave pretty late in like the the evening from the US, depending on where you're coming from, they usually arrive in the morning. For example, the flight that I was talking about, San Juan to Madrid, arrives at 6 in the morning. Is it 6 in the morning? 6 to 7 in the morning, which is an awful hour. Awful. But it's when we arrive. Usually the time that it takes you to get off the plane, pass immigration, get your luggages if you brought any luggages, and then get a taxi and get to your final destination, it takes around an hour or more. Depends on how customs is. So, you know, take an hour or two. So let's say you land at 7, you probably won't be out until 9 in your final destination, 9 to 10. Sometimes when you get to the hotels, you get the miracle that you're able to check in because your room is ready. And I pray every single time that I leave for the airport to take a long haul flight that somehow I'm able to check in. One little thing that I should tell you, if you've made your reservation, whether it's with a travel agent or by yourself or through a third party, I would email the hotel directly. Or if you have a travel advisor, I would have them email you on your behalf. And I would ask, hey, this is a time that my flight's arriving. I would love to know if it's possible to, first of all, check my luggages if the room is not available. And then second of all, see if it's possible to do an early check-in. Now, it depends on the hotel. Some of the hotels, especially if you're booking with a travel advisor, it's kind of included. Like they're not gonna pay, you don't have to pay anything extra if you end up checking in earlier. But there are other hotels that in order to check in earlier or to do late checkout, you do have to pay something. So I would just email before you leave on your trip to see what are your options and see what's gonna happen. So my recommendation is, whether you have your room ready or not, is to quickly take a shower or refresh yourself and head out. I would plan something for the afternoon, but something that can make you get to the hotel early in the evening. So I would have maybe a museum that you're not like, if you don't pay attention, it's okay. Or an activity that like you can do and it's not gonna be like a waste of time, but it's also gonna be like doing something. So do that, and you do that for the afternoon. And if you end up being able to check in at 3 p.m., which is kind of the usual time where hotels can check you in, please, please, please try to not do a nap. And if you have to, the minimum, okay? So you can check in, you leave your things, take a shower. If you have to, take that small and put 10,000 alarms on, okay? 10,000 it has to be. But make sure you wake up and do something in the afternoon. Go out, walk, whatever it is. Go out and do something. What I would do is just find something quick to have a bite around 5 to 6 p.m. and make sure it's light, and then you walk back to your hotel. And then we're gonna do our nice little nightly routine around 7 to 8 p.m. and literally knock off at 8 p.m. You're gonna fall asleep at 8 p.m. because you're so tired. At most 9 p.m. And yes, you will wake up earlier the next day, but just give yourself time. Don't rush to like, I have to get up and now I have to get doing these things and I have to do. Give yourself ample time in the morning. I would say until like 9 to 10 a.m. to get out of the hotel and then start your day. And I think that's one of the best ways that you can beat jet lag. I've tried it a million times. Sometimes I've been guilty of literally falling asleep for the whole entire day once I arrive. So in the evening, I'm like up and awake and I'm like, what do I do now? But this has been kind of like my trusted system that I've always done when I can. And it's worked out. It's made my next day of my travel much better, and it's just made it so much easier to adapt to the time zone. So basically, those are my recommendations for how to survive and how to kind of beat jet lag once you arrive to your new destination. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and make sure to subscribe for more videos and tips and tricks like this that are going to be coming up, as well as some very interesting vlogs about the places that I'm going to be traveling at the end of this year. So thank you so much. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.